Hello and welcome to Plus Sports on Plus TV Africa. It's Wednesday and of course I'm your host this morning, Mikhail Tinubu. I'm joined this morning by the estimable and always a font of knowledge, Seun Ajidagba.
Good morning, Mikhail. It's a pleasure joining you.
Thank you for joining us. I know you're always on standby. It's a pleasure having you here this morning. Now, we're going to start in Nigeria because home is where the heart is. The coach of Kofin FC in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, Remi Amadi, has been banned for 2 years from any football-related activity by FIFA, the World Football Governing Body. This judgment was sent to the Nigeria Football Federation by the international body's disciplinary committee, and it follows a similar ban imposed on the gaffer by the NFF disciplinary committee at its meeting on August 16, 2021. In accordance with Article 66 of the FIFA Disciplinary Code, the NFF Integrity Unit forwarded the said decision of the NFF Disciplinary Committee, along with all relevant documentation, to the FIFA Disciplinary Committee via letter dated August 25, 2021, requesting the committee to extend the sanction to have a worldwide effect. The recommendation was adopted by the FIFA Disciplinary Committee at its meeting on October 5th, 2021, thus triggering the global ban. Now, Seun, we've talked in the past about some of these coaches bringing shame to the country, to the reputation of the positions they hold. What do you think about this story in general, and what kind of effect will it have on Kofin FC?
Well, unfortunately, Remi Amadi, who is in the nationwide League One club, Kofin FC, banned for 2 years for match fixing, is sad because he was involved in the game between Kofin FC and Brooklyn FC at the University of Calabar Stadium. That was in March during the 2020-2021 season. The sad part is that this is the Nigerian nationwide league, not even the Nigerian national league. It's like the first year of our football as our club is concerned. And then you look at it, that for a coach like this, he would have been longing to get a national team job or better to coach in the Nigerian Professional Football League. But this act would remain a stain on his career. Even if he returns after 2 years, there's nothing he will do that they will not make reference to this act of his. If after 3 years, we still talk about quality issues, it means that those things are still enmeshed in our brain.
But then being
what it is in Nigeria.
But then being that he is a coach of a third-tier team in the Nigerian Football League, is this something that is common for that tier of football?
I tell you what, Miguel. The Nigerian Football Federation don't pay attention to all these leagues. Even the one that they are supposed to look into, which is the Nigerian Professional Football League. Because I always tell people here to listen. For whatever happens in our league, the fault will go to Amadi Ban. Because the last time we had the chairman of the Nigerian Professional Football League was late Chief Krajinovic of Vaccinated. They have had a league management company from Munduka Irabo to Shehu, even to the man in the Evacuees Rangers, that I'm trying to remember his name. This sad thing of always saying the second vice chairman or second vice president of the Nigerian Football Federation automatically becomes the league management chairman. It will continue to affect us.
But do you think
Because
in this particular story, Seun, do you think it was even necessary for a manager in the third tier to be referred all the way to FIFA in order to gain a global sanction?
let me tell you something. Like we always say in local parlance, everybody's a thief. My person they catch na the barrel. It's unfortunate that Remi Amadi was a culprit. The point I quickly wanted to make is that the NFF don't pay details to this league. The Nigerian National League, the referendum fight that happens there is quite shameful. It's not what happened between Lemon Stars, Zverev, and a lot of incidents that happen. They don't pay attention to that league. All they pay attention to is the societies of Nigeria. And it's a shame.
Well, let's stick with FIFA briefly. FIFA President Gianni Infantino called on more countries to help with evacuations and open their doors to relocate refugees from Afghanistan in a video released by soccer's governing body on Tuesday, October 26th. Infantino made the call while visiting with more than 150 refugees FIFA helped evacuate along with Qatar, who are currently being housed at a compound in Doha that will be used when the Gulf state hosts the 2022 World Cup. Earlier this month, FIFA said they had worked with Qatari government to evacuate more than 150 football players and their families from Afghanistan, along with others with links to the Afghanistan National Basketball Federation into evacuation efforts. FIFA had also helped cycling body UCI in the evacuation of 165 refugees via Albania. There have been numerous evacuations since the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, on August 15th. And announced a new government last month after the US-led foreign forces withdrew and the Western-backed government collapsed. Seun, we've heard of all these refugees being moved, and now we know that FIFA has had a hand in moving specifically athletes out of Afghanistan, specifically female athletes, because they are the ones most in danger in Afghanistan, because the new Taliban government is unwilling to allow women to participate in sports and generally any kind of work outside of the home. We saw during the Olympics that the IOC allowed for an Afghan, a refugee team to represent. And I am wondering, going forward, is FIFA possibly going to allow for a team that represents Afghanistan but isn't sanctioned by the Taliban at the FIFA World Cup for Women's World Cup?
We must commend FIFA for their humanitarian good that they brought into this. You know what's happening to Afghanistan. And just yesterday, I was talking to you on the show, yourself and Wale, about what happened for Afghanistan against Scotland at the Cricket World Cup, where a lot of people tuned in to see their 130 runs win over Scotland. And with this move by FIFA, in ensuring that they allow women participation and they are not disenfranchised and they are not an endangered species, I think we must commend Gianni Infantino. The only place I don't align with Infantino is his selfish interest of having the World Cup played biannually. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, these guys are human beings, blood flows through their system, they are not robots, they are not machines. Even at some point in time, machines just break down, let alone human beings.
Well,
but on this, I stand by FIFA, and it's really commendable.
On that story, there's a suggestion that the African bloc actually supports a biennial FIFA World Cup for the world. And the reason General Rowe has given is that the African bloc isn't as wealthy as the Europeans, and this would help. But isn't that just going to perpetuate wealth for the Europeans because they already are ahead of the Africans?
Definitely. And so we need to work ourselves up. what we are doing in Africa, for me, I still have issues with it. We discussed this matter yesterday, Mika, about Patrice Motsepe changing some of the decisions that was lost by Ahmad. Because I found out that what CAF were doing was senseless and brainless. How do you justify top teams pitted in the same group? At the end of the day, they get knocked out and we will present a team that is not so competent enough. So for me, I feel that we need to treat some of the things they are doing. You saw what happened at the Afghan qualifiers. Ghana will not be there. In Morocco for the Nations Cup. They will not be there at the World Cup. And either Nigeria or Cote d'Ivoire will also miss the Nations Cup. And by extension could miss the World Cup. So some of the decisions we are taking in Africa need to be reviewed upon. We are talking about logistical nightmare. What is logistical nightmare got to do with proper representation? And I keep citing the example of what happened at the Olympics. Zambia represented Africa, and you saw how they were decimated by countries that played against them. So this is what we are talking about. It's beyond logistical nightmare, but we are talking about Africa. So we must have good representation.
Now, sorry, before we move on to the next story, going back to the FIFA aid for the refugees, I am wondering, because refugee status allows a lot of refugees to end up in different countries and gain new citizenship. In the scenario where some of these Afghan athletes end up in other countries and gain citizenship, the fact that they have represented Afghanistan at senior level already, will that still prevent them from perhaps switching nations and now representing their new adopted nations at sports and events?
That would be totally unfair. They had intent on representing Afghanistan. But because of the prevailing circumstances that is happening in Afghanistan, they cannot stay there anymore, and they were evacuated. So if they are good enough to represent other countries, why disenfranchise them?
Yes.
If they say they want to compete under a neutral flag, give them that opportunity. You saw what happened to Russia. Vladimir Putin, the president, is not ready to listen to the voice of listening, and is acting like somebody who does not have a brain. They allege you of state-sponsored doping. And instead of you to do an inquest and completely eradicate this state-sponsored doping that you are alleged of engaging in, and then bring the company to book, you are deciding to back them up. And at the end of the day, it's affecting some of the athletes who are decided to compete under a neutral flag. There is space for somebody to naturalize. So if the Afghans are not comfortable where they are, they should be given an opportunity to compete in a place where they think they can do very well.
All right. We move over to tennis, actually a few tennis stories, but we start with Alexander Zverev, who picked up his 21st victory in his last 23 matches with the first round win over Filip Krajinovic in the Vienna Open. The German won 6-2, 7-5, coming from 5-2 down in the second set. Zverev next meets Alex de Minaur as he'll attempt to record his 300th victory at tour level. Olympic champion Zverev remains the subject of an ATP investigation into allegations of domestic violence, which he has denied. Now, it doesn't seem like Zverev is allowing the family and legal issues to slow him down, Seun.
He just has to. I always say that Alexander Zverev has got talent. But unfortunately, this issue is having with either the girlfriend is something that will definitely worry him. But he's acting stronger. He's a fantastic player, no doubt about that. US Open semi-finalist. 2020 was a finalist before he went to lose Olympic gold medal. He's won the end of the year championship one, the one we call the season ending, the one is beside Novak Djokovic. So he has talent, no doubt, but he needs to get to that NBA wide.
Well,
like I've always said, Mikael, that once the trio of Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer retires, the guys that will take up at the likes of Dominic Thiem, Daniel Medvedev, Alexander Zverev, and Stefanos Tsitsipas.
Now, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison on Wednesday, October 27th, said unvaccinated tennis players would be allowed to enter the country to play at the Australian Open in January if they underwent a mandatory 2-week COVID-19 quarantine. Morrison's comments contradicted those of his Immigration Minister Alex Hawke, who said last week that tennis players and other athletes would have to be double vaccinated to enter the country. The Prime Minister's statement is good news for Tennis Australia, who won Serbia's world #1 Novak Djokovic and other top players whose vaccination status is unclear to be able to compete in the Grand Slam. The state of Victoria, where the Melbourne Park venue of the tournament is situated, will also certainly enforce the quarantine regulations to the strictest extent. Victoria's Premier Daniel Andrews is vehemently opposed to letting unvaccinated people into the country, but said on Tuesday, October 26th, the state would manage the risk if the federal government decided to allow it. Now, Victoria Premier Daniel Andrews said on Wednesday his government will not apply for travel permits to allow unvaccinated tennis players to compete at the Australian Open in the state, after Prime Minister Scott Morrison indicated they would be allowed into the country. Morrison had said earlier on Wednesday that unvaccinated players would be free to compete at the Grand Slam after undergoing a 2-week COVID-19 quarantine, provided that Victoria, which hosts the tournament in Melbourne, applied for permits for them. Victoria's position is a blow for the Grand Slam organizers, Tennis Australia, who want a strong field for the tournament in January. Defending champion Novak Djokovic has declined to disclose his vaccination status and said that last week he might not play at the tournament. Australia's borders have been effectively sealed for 18 months due to the COVID-19 pandemic, though authorities approved travel exemptions for special cases. Now, Seun, this story has been developing for a while now. We've known that it's very likely that Djokovic and others who have undeclared vaccination statuses would possibly not play in the Australian Open. But then the Prime Minister gave an impression in his statement that they would make an exception. But the caveat for that was that as long as Victoria, the city hosting it, was willing to apply for it. Now, an hour later, the Premier of Victoria comes out and says they're not going to apply for it, and that's a matter done. Are we still going to likely see more developments in this story? Or is there still more being resolved behind the scenes?
Definitely, you're still going to see many twists and turns. Novak Djokovic is adamant. He doesn't want to get vaccinated. And initially they said unvaccinated players will not be allowed to play in the first Grand Slam of the year. Later they tweeted to say they will allow them to still come. But you know, in all of this, he who plays the piper will take the tune. If I come to your house, Mika, you can try to say, anybody who comes to my house must take off their shoes from my gate and walk with their bare feet into my house. You can try to say, anybody that comes to my house can decide to wear their shoes even on my rug. You own your house and you set the rules that exist in your house. If Australia has said, get vaccinated or you don't play this tournament, I think it's safe.
Well,
the same thing is happening to Kai Iving.
Yes, I was just about to bring that up.
Who doesn't want to play for Brooklyn Nets? Because, so, you can argue for the games. There are some of these players, their rights are infringed upon. Getting vaccinated does not mean you cannot die for COVID. does not mean you cannot still contract with COVID. So you can also say their rights are infringed upon. But the rule is the rule.
But then their right
So you
doesn't
have to
involve
stop by the
that.
rule.
Their rights do not legally mandate that anyone must allow them play any specific sports. Every sport has its rules.
And that's what I just said.
Yes.
It
Well,
is the rule of Australia to say get vaccinated and play the Ocean, or you don't want to vaccinated, it's your choice, and you are not playing Australia Open.
well, then now this puts forward the concern for many athletes around the world that depending on where they go, who's hosting a specific competition, they might not even be allowed in through the door. I want to thank you this morning, Seun, for joining us. Always
A pleasure.
Thank you.
And the bigger thanks must go to the management of PlusTvAfrica, who have always found it worthy to spend hard-earned money to call this young boy. God bless the production crew also.
We appreciate
I
you.
love you guys.
We appreciate you. And to everyone watching at home, at work, wherever you are on your phone, it's a pleasure having you join us this morning for Plus Sports on Plus TV Africa. I am your host, Mikhail Tinubu. And remember, life is never boring with some sports.